You're tuned into news across the galaxy where they talk all things LA Galaxy with the Nag Boys. Let's start nagging.
What is up, fellow G's, wherever you may be? This is Edgar from News Across the Galaxy, and this is the Midweek Show. Today, I am joined by Dave Stevens of the Lunacy Podcast to preview this Sunday's match between visiting Minnesota United FC and your Los Angeles Galaxy. Hey, welcome back, Dave. Glad to have you back. How you been?
Hey, I've been great. It's been a great year so far, and I just want to say thank you for having me back. It was absolutely fantastic being on your podcast the first time around, and just thrilled to be on here again previewing the second match here in this in matchup. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and thanks again.
Yeah, we're just we're over here licking our wounds. A lot of people woke up this morning feeling a little bit more humbled. In case anybody's wondering, when this is recorded, this is Friday night, so a lot of people have had 24 hours to digest what happened at the El Tráfico at the Rose Bowl, which didn't go Galaxy's way. LAFC came in riding a real strong streak. They maintained that streak. They came in, they played better overall. Galaxy had some opportunities, cannot convert them. A lot of people have been pointing fingers at Ricky Puig, at Joseph Paintsil, Jaylee Neal, but to be honest, there's a lot of blame to go around. One of the reasons the score wasn't bigger than it was is because Jonathan McCarthy, he had a fantastic game, made some wonderful saves, but overall, it just was not a good night for the LA Galaxy. LAFC proved they're a better team right now. Hopefully, LA Galaxy can figure out ways to improve in the summer. Maybe the addition of a certain German will help that. But for right now, we're still just in the process of negotiations, from what I've heard. But yeah, tough result for LA Galaxy. Some people feeling a little bit humbled, but we move on. And this weekend, we're facing up against Minnesota United, who, well, things haven't been so great for Minnesota, and we'll get into that. But give us a quick update on Minnesota United. What happened with Emmanuel Reynoso and that whole thing? In case people haven't been following, he was one of your DPs, right? And
Yeah. Oh,
then
yes, he was.
we
Yep.
talked about it last time, and what happened?
He was, as of, about a month and a half ago, he was one of our DPs. He is no longer. A really unfortunate situation. I mean, because he is regarded as the best player in Minnesota United's history, and maybe some people could argue that, but realistically, if you look at what he's done for this club since he came in, mid-season 2020, he has made an impact. He's the reason Minnesota got to the Western Conference Final in that kind of condensed year. Unfortunately, to lose that, but yeah, he's been our best player by far, and it's been a really terrible situation because it kind of feels, it's for us, it's a sense of deja vu, and it's frustrating in the sense that you know me, I mean, people feel differently about the situation, but me, it's really unfortunate because I hate to see him go. But unfortunately, last year we went through a similar situation where he was unavailable to start the season for Minnesota. He was down in Argentina, and at the time it was just, following the club, following MLS, they just don't give you enough details. They don't let you know anything for the first, basically. Well, again, just to recap for people who don't know, he missed about 40% of the season last year for the Loons. And he was basically in Argentina for that for reasons unknown. Now it came out after the fact that it was more like personal situations, maybe regarding his family, and we don't need to go into those details. But it was just frustrating at that time because we didn't know. He came back to the club, he made his apologies, and put out a really, really nice video last year, and kind of people welcomed him back, and it was great to see him back. And he made an impact in this club. Minnesota had a playoff push. Unfortunately, that fell short, but he was part of that playoff push in the middle to end of that season. So that was great. Well, this year it kind of played itself back because he again went down to Argentina. And this was different because he supposedly went down to Argentina early in the season. I think it was the third week of the season. And I should say he was injured in training. He was here in Minnesota for training, preseason training, and everybody was happy about that. Hey, yay, he's here. Then he gets hurt. Oh, that, that's a setback, but that happens. Then I think it was after the third game of the year, third or fourth game. Sorry if I'm wrong about that. He had played about 30 minutes. He came in as a sub 30 minutes into one of the matches. And then the next week, Minnesota went on to had a bye week. And he went down to Argentina to get his green card. And so that's great. Well, 1 week turned into two, turned into three, turned into a month and a half. And he basically, it came out that he missed meeting after meeting after meeting. He should have been down there for a week or two to secure his green card and come back. He ended up staying in Argentina for over a month and a half for reasons unknown. We just don't know why he missed these meetings. And then unfortunately, you could probably look this up, but like videos started coming out of him with just like there was a video of him with another person with guns and money, and it was just really, really bad. So by this point, fans, I'm sure the club, everybody was just really frustrated. So at that point, we were basically assuming he was gone. And yeah, obviously, as it turned out, he moved on. Club Tijuana, and they sold him, and so Minnesota, I think his transfer fee to Minnesota was around $5 million. I've heard reports that said Minnesota might get upwards of seven figures, if depending on how he does there. But so it's not like he hasn't done anything for this club in 2020, 21, 22, significant contributions. And it's just unfortunate because it ended badly, really badly over these last couple of years. But, quite frankly, he was our best player, and I'm going to miss him because it's clear now over the last month. It was easy for Minnesota maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, when this really started going down. This news came out towards the end of May. His transfer was finalized, I think, on May 30th. It was easier back then to say, hey, we don't need him. We're fine. But I think a lot of people, a lot of fans especially, are kind of looking at this and saying, yeah, we kind of miss Reynoso right now. And the fact is, Minnesota does. They're missing a playmaker. So
Yeah, a lot of people might not be aware about what's going on in Minnesota, but the last time these two teams faced each other, Galaxy and Minnesota, it was a battle for first place. And since then, we've seen a very resurgent RSL. We've seen LAFC catch fire. Galaxy has been able to keep pace for most of that. But Minnesota United, you look at the standings, Minnesota fell off a cliff. What happened? What happened? And how much of that had to do with Reynoso?
yeah, well, I guess first of all, like I said, Reynoso played 30 minutes this season for the club. So I guess I would say not a lot had to do with Minnesota. I think there's a few things that happened in this season so far, and we're well, I shouldn't say well over, but we're halfway through the season now. I think number one for me, and I was saying this early on, Minnesota was maybe overachieving just a little bit to start the season. In the first month and a half of the season, basically through early May, Minnesota was getting results, including the draw against LA Galaxy. I think it was 2-2 at that point, and they were getting results, but a lot of their results were very late. If you look at Minnesota's expected goals versus goals, the goals the goals scored were out exceeding the expected goals in quite a bit in those early games, which was great. But again, overachieving. Last year was just the opposite. But this year, I think it's a little bit of overachieving. And me, I think everybody on the Lunacy podcast, when we started the season, knowing that we were at the time when Minnesota started the season, they did not have a head coach. Eric Ramsey came on several weeks into the season. We all predicted, except for me, I think I predicted Minnesota finished 8th in the standings, but all three of my other co-hosts predicted Minnesota to finish outside of the playoff line, either 10, 11, 12 in that range. And I think there's a little bit of a regression to the mean. I think we're starting to see that. So they were certainly overachieving. These late dramatic goals, they just aren't happening. But to completely answer your question, there's more than that. It's not just that, we don't have Reynoso, we don't have the talent. Minnesota, if you look at the roster, it's a very talented club, even without Reynoso. We have, an all-star in Robin Lod. He's having an MVP caliber season. That's been fantastic. We've had some newcomers, like Tony Oluwaseyi just come out of nowhere. I shouldn't say out of nowhere. He had a great season last year with San Antonio, but the problem has been over the last month, and I'm not trying to come up with excuses, but it's been a brutal month as far as injuries and international, departures. We've lost Dane St. Clair and Tony Oluwaseyi to Canada, and congratulations to Canada for their run. They just advanced to the semifinals in the Copa America tonight as we record. But we've also lost Alejandro Bron and Carlos Harvey to the Copa America tournament, and then on top of that, unfortunately, with Tony Oluwaseyi out, he scored 7 goals for this club. Also, Temu Pukki is injured. Our backup goalkeeper Clint Irwin is injured. Will Trapp is out. You can just go on and on and on. So yeah, injuries and international duty has made this stretch tougher. And then I should add another thing that I don't know how close your followers are aware of Minnesota and their roster, but there's been we had another international Honduran player, Ket Curvin Arriaga. He had found a role in Eric Ramsey's basically 5-3-2 formation, or his 3 center back preferred formation. He's really found a home as that right kind of center back. Arriaga did, but he was transferred as well. He was traded, and we've lost Victor Eriksson. He left the club as well. So it's just been, our roster is really, really thin. We've had an emergency goalkeeper called up for our Wednesday match. And it sounds like I'm making excuses, but yeah, long story short, I think if you listen to Eric Ramsey's post-game conference, which I did after Wednesday night's loss to Vancouver at home, he kind of said, he's saying what I'm saying. It's a tough situation. We're basically looking forward to the summer transfer window. It cannot come soon enough. And I still think this club is talented, like I said when I started that little spiel there. But I just hope they can get a result or two and then still be in contention. At least I'm not, like you said, I don't think Minnesota is going to be competing for the top 1, 2, 3, or 4 spots, for a home playoff game. But I'm just hoping at this point that Minnesota might be still competing for a playoff spot, as we get later into the season.
Is Eric Ramsey's job in any kind of jeopardy? Because we've been seeing a lot of MLS teams that have been dropping managers that you thought their job was secure. I mean, this past week, it was really shocking what happened in St. Louis, right? There's it seemed like he was gonna be there for a long time. Just to remind anybody, I forgot his name. I'm so sorry.
Well, as you look, I'll let you look that up, and then I'll go ahead and
because that was shocking to me.
Yeah,
And
I'll speak on that. I mean, I do not think Eric
Bradley
Ramsey's.
Carnell.
Oh, Brad. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I do not think Eric Ramsey's job is in danger. Mainly because of the way he came in. He came in really on the fly. Just kind of was thrown to the fire, and what we saw, and I say we as a fan base, we were really excited to see what he's done for this club. We had gotten so used to seeing Adrian Heath and his style. He just wasn't flexible. He didn't make any changes. He basically didn't let any young players kind of get their opportunity. He had his preferred lineup and he stuck with it. If you got in his doghouse, you didn't get out of that doghouse. And he was just so rigid. Where with Eric Ramsey, we're seeing players that, we would never, he's making on average 4 substitutions per game. Under Adrian Heath, I don't have the exact number, but I would have to imagine it was closer to 2. We're seeing changes. His tactics have been good, especially defensively, and he's just getting the most out of the young talent that we have on the squad, where we didn't see that with Heath. Heath relied on the veterans, and over the last 2 or 3 years, Minnesota has had a solid squad as well, but we didn't see younger players get opportunities. Well, it was very clear early on that under Eric Ramsey, we were going to see the young players get their chance, and players like Tani Aluache is I mean, I don't know now that he's been away with Canada for some time, but he was in the top 5 as far as goals per 90, goals and assists per 90. He's been a breakout player. I just feel under Adrian Heath, we wouldn't have saw that. He wouldn't have got his opportunity because he would have relied more on his veterans, namely Timu Pukki in this case. But Eric Ramsey, when we talked about this actually on our last podcast, he's certainly feeling heat himself. I mean, he's a first-time head coach, period. But here in the MLS, he's certainly feeling pressure. I mean, but that's part of the job. That's in the job description. There's just no doubt about it. I think coming into the season, I think most people I don't think their expectations were high. So I think we outkicked our coverage a little bit. I think we're out ahead of our skis, and I think we're settling back into it. So I think what's really gonna, if at the end, if we have another if we are lucky enough to join you for another podcast at the end of the season, maybe in a playoff match or something like that. And if we get to that point and Eric Ramsey is not looking good, then yes, I think maybe we could bring up that question. But I think what really is going to put him under the microscope as far as fans are concerned is what he does, what him and Khalid Ahmad, the new chief soccer officer for Minnesota, what they do in the summer transfer window, because that was what was sold to us. We knew, because we didn't have a head coach when the season started. Basically, it was sold to us as fans that they were going to make moves coming into the summer transfer window. They weren't going to make any splashes early in the preseason. We learned that really quick, but they did hint at making a splash in the summer transfer window. And if they do that, that window is opening up very soon as we speak. If they do make a couple moves, 3 or 4, as fans, we're hoping for 4, but if they do make moves and they have 2 DP spots open at this moment, that could change the trajectory of the season and how we view the job that Eric Ramsey has done so far.
Is this, Dave, is this when you told me that Minnesota United has discovery rights to Antoine Griezmann?
Yes, exactly. That might have been one of the 3 or 4 players that I'm hoping for. The only interesting thing that I'll say about that is that there are a couple, the beat reporters for this club. Andy Greeter is one of them from the St. Paul Pioneer Press. He has actually hinted multiple times that they might not even add another DP in the summer, even though they have 2 spots available. They might actually lean more into taking advantage of that U22 initiative. But we, again, as fans, we're not necessarily upset because we have especially in our positions of need, we're aging, namely center back, and so if we can get younger with that U22 initiative, we'd be okay with that as long as they make some moves.
So is there a chance we're going to see maybe a bell curve where you guys went from starting off really strong and you're having this dip, and then maybe towards the end of the season, you guys get healthy, you get players back from international duty, and Minnesota has a nice little resurgence there at the end?
Yeah, I think that could definitely happen. And then, I'm going to throw out 2017 and 2018 when MLS was just kind of getting their start. But if you look over the last 3 seasons, that actually has been Minnesota's, for whatever reason, Minnesota goes on long stretches of good and bad results. That's just been the case. And unfortunately, like last year, they started out the season slow, but they had a really good midseason run for a month, 2 months. And then unfortunately, Minnesota just, for reasons unknown, and ultimately what led to Adrian Heath's downfall, the club missed the playoffs. Adrian Heath got fired. And then this season, they started out quite strong in the first month and a half, stronger than anyone would have predicted, including myself. And and everybody else on this podcast. And now they're going through another long stretch, a bad stretch. So it wouldn't surprise me at all. And I kind of hope, and we'll see, is it going to be too late to climb into that playoff standing again? I mean, as we speak, Minnesota is still in 8th place. They're still in the thick of things, but last time we talked, like you said, they were, it was a battle for first. So things have changed. So I do think there is a chance, because there's significant talent on this roster, and it'll be another week, unfortunately, thanks to Canada's advancement in the Copa America. But they are, the players that they're missing from international duty are going to be coming back in a week or two, and the players, namely like Will Trapp and Timo Pukki, they'll be back in another week or two as well. So yeah, I think they can certainly go on another solid run to vault them back into the playoffs position. Sure.
Yeah, and when you look at that Western Conference standings, there is very little room for mistake between 4th and 10th. I mean, you look at it, Colorado has 34 points, Austin sitting outside the playoff line at 27. And Austin has one game in hand on Colorado. So let's say, for example, hypothetically, Austin gets an extra win. They're only 4 points behind 4th place Colorado. So those 4 points separate that group. It's like a big scrum there behind the 2 LA teams and RSL. It's just a big scrum, and any one of them could jump in. Dallas, 100%. St. Louis could get hot all of a sudden. And then there's Kansas City and San Jose, but yeah, we won't speak about them, right?
Yeah. I mean, although I would never rule Kansas City out, but yeah, you look at them, and it's so funny over the last few years here, here in Minnesota. This is the position we're used to being in, at least for the last few seasons, right in the thick of things. And that's why it was so unfortunate for the first 2 months of the season. We're looking at ourselves as fans, looking at the standings. Hey, Minnesota's sitting in 3rd or 2nd place, and wow, fantastic. And we're comfortable. We have, a 6 to 8 point cushion over the 6th or 5th place team. That has changed in the last month. Of course, Minnesota, I couldn't believe this. I really couldn't. Minnesota is currently on a 5-game losing streak. That is their longest streak in the history of MLS. In fact, they're also on a 6-game winless streak. They haven't won since they beat Kansas City, speaking of Kansas City, on June 2nd. So over a month without a win for this club, 5 losses in a row. Longest streak in their MLS history, and I'm pretty sure you'd have to go quite far back in their NASL days to find a 5-game losing streak as well. So this is uncharted territory for this fan club. Even in the early days of 2017, 2018, it's rough. So I guess silver lining is Minnesota started out hot, much better than most fans thought Minnesota would. So at least even after losing 5 in a row, winless in their last 6, they're still, fighting for a playoff spot, but right in the thicket. And that's the thing. Every year, it's such a battle in that 4 through 11 spot. It's just a battle to the end. So
yeah, I listen to a lot of podcasts from the East Coast. I listen to Charlotte's, Atlanta's, and they're always harping about how much stronger the Eastern Conference is. But to me, it's very top heavy, Eastern Conference, and like the real battle, like the real exciting races are in the West, because everybody's beating up on everybody. And teams get hot, teams get cold, but everybody's still fighting for the playoff spot, and you get some really exciting football over here. But let's move on to the match itself.
Okay.
First, let's talk about the referees, because Pro released the refereeing crew that's going to be handling this match. So a referee is going to be Pierre-Luc Lauzière. Very French.
Well
His
done,
name is Pierre-Luc. What's that?
I said well done on your pronunciation.
Oh, merci beaucoup. Yeah. Lauzière, he's fairly new to MLS. So he has been refereeing matches since 2019. He's only refereed 49 regular season MLS matches, including just one LA Galaxy match, which was a 1-0 loss at FC Dallas on July 31st, 2022. And he has refereed 3 Minnesota United matches, yielding 2 wins, no draws, 1 loss. And one of those wins was that big road win you guys had in Charlotte earlier this season, which as I told you before you came on, the guys from COTFC Fan TV still talk about that like it was one of the darkest days in like franchise history. Like, how dare they come in and smash us around in our own house, right?
Oh,
It was a strong 3-0 showing from Minnesota.
you're right, on the road, and that occurred fortunately for Minnesota, unfortunately for Charlotte. That was early in the season, and that 3-0 win on the road. Minnesota had been a very strong road team up and through that point through the first 2.5 months of the season. In fact, at one point, I believe they were leading or tied or near the top as far as road wins in MLS. That's changed a little bit since then, but yeah, a 3-0 win on the road is significant. Minnesota does not score three or more goals very often. And I think I mentioned to you prior to jumping on the pod that Minnesota has scored 3 goals since, but that was in a loss, a 3-5 loss
Yeah,
against
at
Dallas.
Dallas, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, just capping it real quick. Lazier, he has just above 3 yellow cards per match, and very rarely has any red cards. So we shouldn't expect too many fireworks in this match. All the fireworks were yesterday. If you see or hear anything, then that wasn't us. But uh, we talked about the player availability report where I mentioned the referees. Now let's get into predictions day. Both teams are hungry for a win.
yeah.
LA Galaxy, like I said, licking their wounds. They're gonna want to get back on the horse right away. They want to keep pace with LAFC and RSL, who are very strong this season. And then you have Minnesota United, who you say is has been riding this horrible 5-game losing streak, 6-game winless, and definitely will want to get something, anything right against LA
Mhm.
Galaxy. So looking at everything that we just discussed, what's your prediction for this match?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm predicting Minnesota is going to lose. I'm in the 2-0 LA Galaxy victory at home. And my reasons for that was, and I think I made the same prediction on our podcast last weekend, prior to Minnesota's, LA Galaxy. I know you're licking your wounds, and the team is licking their wounds after losing on the 4th of July. However, Minnesota, had a bad loss at home against Vancouver. That was a 3-1 loss at home, and that was a game where we were kind of praying for a point as a fan, just to get a point, and then maybe we can turn this losing streak around. But based on that loss there, unfortunately, the roster is not any better than it is now. Canada advancing means we're still on our third goalkeeper, Alex Smear, making his second MLS appearance, at LA Galaxy on the weekend, and the roster's just not looking good. Unfortunately, I think the future might be bright for Minnesota, but we've been seeing really inconsistent wing play from Bongi Halongaway and Sang Ben, who's basically now kind of being thrust into the striker position, but typically playing on the left or right wing. He's been up and down, and I have a hard time seeing even I have a hard time seeing how Minnesota is going to score goals in this match. And Robin Lod, our all-star, which, if we're talking about bright spots for Minnesota at this point, is, yeah, we're very happy that Robin Lod made the all-star game. Well deserved, all-star appearance for him. Very excited, but he has struggled since the loss of Taniel O'Shea, due to Canada international duty and Team Puki international duty. He struggled to find those connections that he had found so much in the early part of the season. So I struggle to find ways in this. I just can't see how this Minnesota is going to score. And down to the third goalkeeper at this point, I can definitely see LA Galaxy getting out to an early lead, and that, like against Vancouver, that'll kind of sink Minnesota's chances. So LA Galaxy 2-0 victory. Your fans will probably be happy to hear that, but it's really hard for me to be optimistic, in the midst of a 5-game losing streak. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned it's hard to be optimistic, right?
Mhm.
Considering what Minnesota's been going through. Like I've already kind of digested what happened at the Rose Bowl, but it's also on my end, it's kind of hard to be optimistic and turn that page and be like, all right,
Hmm.
We have a game on Sunday. Okay, guys, let's do this, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will say, "Oh, they played so, they didn't do so well against LAFC," and then you got to remind yourself that LAFC is a really good team.
Hmm.
Um, they're really good. I said before that match, I was talking to LAFC podcast, and I mentioned to him, this is our biggest test of the year, and it's an opportunity to see if LA Galaxy can really hang with one of the best teams in the league. Quite possibly the best team, aside from
Hmm.
Minnesota. I mean, from Miami. Sorry, I got my
Yeah.
M's confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so now LA Galaxy, you quickly have to change gears, and the biggest challenge I think for LA Galaxy going into this game is that LA Galaxy has had this weird thing where they play to the level of their opponent. We saw it earlier in the season against San Jose. We saw it against Chicago. Uh, and the Chicago match, they lost. A game where everybody was like, there's no way Galaxy should lose this game. I keep bringing it up because I think it's fascinating. Galaxy had not lost to Chicago in 14 years,
Hmm.
and they went ahead and
Wow.
lost. So uh, that's one thing about this league. Too. You never know what could happen, right? And any given Sunday, right? It is a Sunday match. Anything could happen.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we always make predictions on our podcast as well, Looney's podcast, and I am notoriously bad at my predictions. But I'm telling you what, if you're a sports bettor, just stay away from the MLS because it's impossible. It really is, isn't it?
Yeah, especially those midweek matches, they're a crap
Hmm.
shot, man, because you
Yeah.
never know what you're gonna
Yeah.
get. But yeah, in this case, I really do think LA Galaxy is gonna be urged to get a result, not just a like get points, like a draw, and they're gonna try and get those 3 points against Minnesota. I'm sure Greg Vanny is gonna tell his guys, "Hey, look, Minnesota's not doing so well right now. They're missing players, yeah, international duty, injuries. This is an opportunity for you guys to get some 3 points, maintain pace, and get some momentum going into the summer. Because in this Western Conference, if you falter just a bit, you got left behind. And you can tell me, you can sit here and tell me about that all day long, right? About Minnesota just lost pace. So Galaxy urged to win. I'm gonna say Galaxy comes out 2-0 win. Like you said, I'm echoing your statement.
Yeah. Like it.
Um, we might see some rotations. Ricky Pooch started this last match. Interesting. I mentioned on my Twitter feed, got a lot of it was a lightning rod for controversy, but I said uh, LA Galaxy have lost the last 2 games where Ricky Pooch has started. During while he was out due to injury and his recovery, Galaxy went on a 4 game winning streak. He came back to start and they lost.
Hmm.
And the match previous to him getting injured was the Chicago game, which they also lost. So it's not that Ricky Pooch would played particularly horrible. It's just that Greg Vanny's apparently, well, not apparently, we saw it happen. The team was able to put together a different dynamic, free flowing style of game, which a lot of people say this is the true Vanny ball. And we saw that because it opened up Gabriel Peck and Joseph Paintsil on the wings to move around more with more freedom, and with Diego Fagundes calling the shots in the middle. Uh, Everybody was passing the ball around more, whereas when Ricky Puig plays, he holds a lot of possession and moves the ball around in the middle, and a lot of times he likes to take shots on his own, or he likes to carry the ball himself into the 18 instead of distributing it more. For example, last night he had 11% of the possession, which it's quite a lot. When you got to distribute the ball around more. So I'm curious to see if Vanny is going to keep him in there as a starter. He did expel a lot of energy in playing the full 90 against LAFC. Maybe he has him in there for 60 minutes, or maybe he comes in as a sub. Either way, I would like to see LA Galaxy try to play against Minnesota without Puig, just to see if they can go back to the free flowing style. And if it doesn't work, just throw Puig in there and see if we can give him a spark. But yeah, 2-0 win. Hopefully it happens that way. I'm really sorry, Dave. You hate,
Well,
you hate to
hey, You don't need to apologize that, hey, our projections match, so knowing our luck will both be wrong, who knows, but and we should mention LA Galaxy has, more or less dominated, the series head-to-head series in this one. I will say this, if these two clubs met later into the season and Minnesota's back to full health and didn't have the international duty losses, I think I would have predicted a maybe like a 1-1 draw or something like that, but I just can't do it. So there is that.
Interesting. You mentioned the all-time record between these teams. I'll bring it up real quick because I can find it right now. So in the regular season, LA Galaxy and Minnesota United have faced each other 14 times. Galaxy has 6 wins, Minnesota has 3, and there's been 5 draws. The last time that Galaxy, let me see, the last time Galaxy defeated Minnesota was on September 22nd, 2023, which was a 4-3 Galaxy win here at home. Since then, Minnesota beat Galaxy 5-2, and then we had the 2-2 draw, the very exciting 2-2 draw in Minneapolis. I'm sorry, in the area between the Twin Cities, right?
Yeah, don't worry about. I don't get offended. Yeah, it's technically the St. Paul, but it's literally midway between Minneapolis and St. Paul, so you're fine.
Yeah. So, and it's interesting because, like I said, Galaxy defeated Minnesota United just over a year ago. But before then, the last time Galaxy won a game was all the way back in 2021. So a lot of those Galaxy victories were in the early years of Minnesota United foray into MLS. And since then, we've seen the Loons kind of take more liberties, get more draws, get more wins. But I don't know about tomorrow. I mean, about Sunday.
Hey, honestly, I don't either. And then, and that's the other thing about our fan base is we're never excited when it's a Sunday night match and it's 9:30 local time here in Minnesota, right? The start of the match. So
I find it fascinating, to be honest, that you mentioned it, because here in LA, I mean, a lot of people had the weekend off, right? And you're with family or you're traveling, and then if you're a Galaxy fan and you have to go to this game at 7:30 p.m. and then you're leaving the stadium at like 10, whatever it is, and then you gotta drive home, and then you gotta go to bed, and you're in bed by like midnight or whatever, and then you gotta get up early to go to work the next day. Geez, that's kind of rough, man. Who came up with this? Come on, MLS, throw us some bone here. You should have had a 5:30 start for us local.
We you guys, and then especially knowing it's a Sunday night game. Is it I get, it's just on Apple TV season pass, but knowing that it's against a Midwestern opponent, it's like, start a little early, help us both out on a Sunday night. Come on.
Yeah, for real. All right, well, real quick, we were talking about this before we started recording. A lot of attention is going to be shifting over to the All-Star game, which is coming soon. You mentioned Lud is going to be one of your players. Ricky Puig is representing LA Galaxy. And then we talk about those all-star jerseys, which you just finally got to see. If you haven't seen them, gotta look them up. I wish I had a graphic to show you, guys right now, but you gotta look them up. My first impression, I'll give you to me, they look like a cardigan my grandma used to wear when I was a little kid. It's some people love them, some people are like, oh. Dave, what did you think? I saw your reaction when you first saw it.
I mean, I'll say, and it's funny for people listening. Like my today, as we jumped on this podcast, was my first look. Actually, I hadn't had a chance to peek at them, and I like your other kind of where you kind of described them as what would you call those, like magic posters that you'd cross your eyes?
Oh yeah, those.
That's you
posters from the mid to late 90s, but you have to look at them cross-eyed or something.
Credit to you for bringing that up, because when I was first looking at it, that's kind of what I was looking at, and I told you, and I'll tell your listeners, like, my first opinion is not great. I don't love it, but I do feel like maybe that will grow on me a little bit. But first impression not great, honestly, but I'm hoping it'll grow on me, because I do love the MLS All-Star tradition, and I hope it continues to grow. And yes, and thanks for saying that Robin Lod being an All-Star is one of the bright spots here in the last month, so that Minnesota fans have to look forward to. So
I get a feeling that if you stare at that kit long enough, you're gonna start to see Crew Cat appear right there in front of you.
I'm looking at it now. I'm crossing my eyes, just expecting something to pop out. But
You never know. Maybe the original crew logo will pop up. With the three crew workers there with their hard hats.
it's it's cool. I'll have to look this up later, but we don't have time for it now. But I would like to hear the origin, kind of like where they came up with that. I like the yellow. I like the pink. I mean, there's something to that. I just haven't gotten used to. It's gonna take me a moment or a day or two to get used to looking at that jersey, I think is what it is.
Yeah. So that's the MLS one. I wonder what Liga MX is gonna bring, because like
Mm,
last year they had a really nice kit. So I'm just curious to
yes,
see what they have.
for
But
sure.
for now, hey Dave, thank you so much. It's always nice chatting with you and catching up with the Lunacy podcast, guys. Um, if anybody's interested and wanting to know more about Minnesota United or keeping tabs on the Lunacy podcast, where can they find you and the Lunacy podcast on socials?
Yeah, basic. I mean, yeah, anywhere you listen to podcasts, if you just search Lunacy Podcast, you'll find us. But our basically, as far as social media is concerned, we're most active, basically only active on Twitter. You'll find us at Lunacy P on X or Twitter, and that's where you'd find us. Yeah,
And for anybody who doesn't know, Lunacy, that's a double O, not the U, because the
yeah, L.
loons, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a little play on it. So LOONACYP is our X handle there. So
Hey, can you do that loon call, by the way? Can you do that
I
little
can't
loon
do
call?
that. I wish I could. I, if I tried, I'd just embarrass myself. So I'm not even gonna try. But I wish I had that audio drop in the back and I'd play it for you. But yeah,
Right?
we're
Imagine hearing that in the middle of the night, and then
and
you get hit with like a
and
tornado warning, like right after it.
and we I will say, as you brought it up, so I'll say it. I mean, we are proud here in Minnesota of loons, and they're our national bird. The loon is, and you don't have to go, you don't have to leave Minneapolis to hear a loon. It's really not that uncommon to hear a loon call, and it's quite a sight. It's quite a sound, I should say. So
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. Anything else you want to say? Galaxy fans or Minnesota fans who might be listening in?
no, I usually I usually end my podcast by saying go loons, but I'm not gonna say go loons, or I'll be real quiet, go loons. And I will say, to remind your fans, that I'm doing a podcast with the Minnesota Loon, or not with the Minnesota Loons, but it's a fan podcast for the Minnesota Loons. And I got my start in MLS by becoming a fan of the LA Galaxy. So great respect
Yay.
to the Galaxy and your club and your fans. It's they've been there since day one, and it's the reason I'm into MLS soccer. And so I have great respect for you and your podcast and your fans and your team. So thank you so much for having me back on. It's been an absolute blast. It really has.
Hey, much respect to you too. I think having Minnesota United in the league makes this league even more richer. I think I've mentioned that to you before and to other people that join us. It's what makes our league so wonderful to have all these wonderful cities represented in this league across this beautiful nation of ours, right?
Yes. Yep. Well said. Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
everyone, thank you so much. As always, hey, keep on nagging and we tank for life, baby. Let's go.